Roger Walton is still there, and he's been masterminding the new waste collection system. So we hope to hear something of it from him, and then he'll be pleased to answer any questions. Roger.
Thank you very much for inviting me this evening. It's a pleasure to be here and have a chance to tell you a little bit about the District Council's plans for waste collection. The slide says, my name is Roger Walton, I'm Director of Property, Leisure and Waste Management at Dover District Council, and also Head of Environmental Services over at Shepways. You'll be hearing a lot about shared services in the coming months and the coming years, and we're already working quite closely with our partners across East Kent, and that's at the core of what we're doing on waste. But for about 18 months now I've been running grounds maintenance and waste and cleansing services in Shepway as well as my duties at Dover, and for no more money than I was getting for my duties in Dover either, so you're pleased to know, so it comes cheap, shared services. What I'll do is to give you a flavour as to why we're doing what we're doing, and the reasoning behind that, and if you like, the whole work that's developing across East Kent. And I'll try and allow plenty of time for questions, because waste is always a very personal service. It's the one service that I'm very conscious that if you, as a district council, want to get things wrong, try getting it wrong with refuse collection, because the phones don't half go red hot when you're not doing refuse collections right. It's the one service that I think whenever you do a survey, everybody recognises, well, at least the council collects my bins. They don't do anything else for me, but they do that. So if you want to get things wrong, get refuse collection wrong. Where we are across East Kent in terms of the project is that there are now 5 authorities working together. That's the 4 collection authorities and Kent County Council. The waste theory, I mean, from a customer point of view, you probably don't necessarily pick that up, but that's the way the legislation works. District councils have statutory powers to collect waste, and when they've collected it, they pass it on to KCC, that is the disposal authority that disposes of waste. We started work about 2 years or so ago, probably even longer than that, 3 years ago, between Dover and Shepway, when there were discussions between me and my colleague who was at Shepway at that stage regarding our contractual arrangements, which were due at that time to end towards the end of 2008. We started talking about whether or not there would be economies from working together, that, you know, we both had private contractors working for us, but perhaps if we merged contracts, there'd be an opportunity for one contractor to do a cheaper service than 2 contractors working independently. They could run vehicles across the boundary. It doesn't mean when they get to the boundary with one district, they're going to have to stop collecting, and it just seemed to us to make sense. So we started working together on documentation and all the stuff that you have to do in terms of putting a contract together. And then 4 or 5 months into that process, started talking to our colleagues across county around what we were doing, and it became clear that we were missing a trick really, that there was more we could do by looking at it on a much larger scale, and in particular trying to tie the work that we were doing as Dover and Shepway in with what Kent needed from the disposal side. Historically, the way waste has been run is that each council does its own thing. So if you go across the country, and any of you travel, and any of you have got friends elsewhere, it probably doesn't compare with the service we run here. Some councils have different colour bins, some councils collect it in boxes, some councils such as we don't provide bins at all. You've got 300 district councils across the country all doing their own thing. Now, just some of that is the right and proper approaches in terms of democracy, individual councillors taking individual decisions to suit individual communities, but at the same time it's got to be questioned as to whether it does make for an efficient service. And from Kent's perspective, with 12 districts in Kent doing 12 different things and collecting waste in 12 different ways, it complicates the arrangements that they have to put in place to dispose of waste. They're busy receiving waste from Dover in one way, and then we're collecting it in a different mix to the way that Tunbridge Wells collect it, or Dartford do something different. And that's expensive, and from a taxpayer's perspective, that adds cost overall to the service, because when you get your council tax bill, there's a bit from Dover in there, there's a bit from Kent, there's a bit from Kent Police, and so forth and so forth. But ultimately it's just one bill, and you don't really care who you're paying as to whether it's Dover or whether it's Kent or whoever, so long as we sort out that for you, and we make it as small a bill as we can. What we've tried to do, and what's at the whole core of this project, is to design services in the parameters that exist in Kent, so recognising the facilities that are for processing waste in Kent, recognising the place that we already were in relation to services, but to try and design services in a way that is cheapest for the taxpayer as a whole, setting aside the interests of each district. So rather than worrying about, oh, we can't do that because it will cost the collections too much, or we can't do that solution because that would be too expensive for disposal, what we've been trying to do is to look at a service that is most effective for the taxpayer as a whole and offers the most efficient and price-conscious service for the taxpayer.